For 40 years, my world was 18 wheels and endless asphalt. They tell you about the freedom, the open road. What they don't tell you is this: the most terrifying thing you'll ever haul isn't in the trailer. It's the person you let into your cab. Story 1. The girl who knew too much. This is the first story. The one that broke the world I knew. They sell you the fantasy. The 6-figure salary for hard running. The whole country, a beautiful blur outside your window. What's the fine print? The concrete seat after 12 hours of driving. Your Thanksgiving dinner, eaten cold from Tupperware on a desolate shoulder. You can get used to the bad coffee. You can get used to the loneliness. But the people are a wild card you can never, ever prepare for. 6 years in. It was a dead stretch of I-80 near Lincoln, Nebraska. The kind of 2 a.m. dark that feels like you're driving through a void. That's when I saw her. A flicker of white in the pitch black. A ghost standing on the shoulder. A girl, no older than 20. A sundress and sandals in the freezing night. Her thumb stuck out like her life depended on it. Every single instinct I had, every trucker's horror story whispered in my ear, screamed at me. Keep driving. Do not stop. Your cab is your castle. My foot hovered over the gas pedal. And then, I stopped. She slid into the passenger seat. Said her name was Riley. She was quiet at first, just staring into the dark. Then, out of nowhere, she told me she never knew her father. Trying to be kind, I offered some clumsy consolation. "I'm sorry. That must be hard." She laughed. A sharp, hyena-like cackle that ripped through the quiet of the cab. Hard? He was just a sperm donor. Her words weren't sad. They were clinical. Like ice. And then the conversation tilted. It got dark. She turned to me, her eyes reflecting the dashboard lights. "You ever hit your wife? You got kids?" I told her I had a daughter once, lost her years ago. A piece of my heart I never talk about. Riley leaned in then, so close I could feel her breath. Her voice dropped to a sly, conspiratorial whisper. "Did you ever look at her?" The temperature in the cab plummeted. My blood went cold. I yelled. I threatened to put her out on the shoulder right then. My heart was hammering against my ribs. And she just laughed, a twisted, childish giggle. "What's wrong, Daddy? Did I hit a nerve?" Then she said the words that still burn. "You look like the kind of monster who'd hurt his own daughter." Blind rage took over. I swerved the rig onto the shoulder, gravel crunching and flying. I was shouting, pointing at the door. "Get out! Now!" As I moved to shove her out, her hand flashed to her backpack. It wasn't fear in her eyes. It was cool calculation. Suddenly, I was staring down the barrel of a small, ugly .22 pistol. The game had changed. She was in control. To prove a point to show me how powerless I really was, she reached back into her bag. She pulled out a Tupperware container. The smell hit me first. A sweet, cloying decay. I gagged. Inside, floating in a dark, reddish jelly, were 2 pale, meaty orbs. My mind broke. I was convinced I was looking at a man's remains. I retched, my vision swimming, and she cackled. "Pig testicles, you coward, in brine, for my dog." It was all a performance. A cruel, elaborate game. Before she ordered me to drop her at a truck stop, she gave me a speech. Calm, almost philosophical. She said she usually killed witnesses, but I was an exception. Then she looked right at my glove box. "You've got a gun in there," she said. "Not a question. A fact. But you won't use it on a girl who reminds you of your dead daughter. You won't let yourself become the very thing that took her from you." The most terrifying part. She was right. She had seen right through my soul, dissected my deepest pain, and used it as her shield. I was completely disarmed. I drove away in a daze. I reported it. Got a case number that felt as useless as a receipt. I called for years. They never found a Riley. No matches. She vanished like smoke. I don't know if she ever healed, if she found some light, or if the profound darkness she carried that night finally consumed her whole. That night, I didn't just pick up a hitchhiker. I picked up a ghost, and some ghosts. They don't need a grave to haunt you. They ride with you, in the silence between the mile markers, in the shadow that moves just wrong in your mirror. They teach you the final rule of the road. The scariest things you'll ever carry aren't in the trailer. They're the echoes of the people you let inside. And my cab door opened for more than just her. If you want to hear the next story from the dark side of the highway, hit subscribe. The road gets much, much darker, and you won't want to drive it alone. Story 2, The Silent Brotherhood. There are rules to this job, written and unwritten, but nothing could ever prepare me for the day I met men who lived entirely outside the law. You learn the rules fast in trucking. The 11-hour driving limit isn't a suggestion, it's the law. Forgetting to crank down your landing gear at the warehouse? That's an $800 fine they take right out of your check. But the rules of the road, the logbooks, the way stations, they create an illusion of order, a system. And for a long time, I believed in that system. I believed that if you followed the rules, you were safe. That belief ended on a gray, rain-threatened morning in the backwoods of Oregon. I was hauling a trailer marked sporting goods. It was a good load, long but straightforward. Or so I thought. That's when I first saw him in my mirrors. A black Chevy pickup, tinted windows, riding my bumper a little too close for a long, lonely stretch of forest highway. Then the lights flashed. Not a light bar, but small, hidden LEDs red and blue flaring in the grille. An unmarked unit. I eased onto the shoulder, my mind running through a checklist. Was I speeding? Trailer lights out? The man who approached my window wasn't wearing a standard police uniform. He was dressed in head-to-toe tactical gear. A pistol on his hip, a badge clipped to his vest, but it was vague, polished metal. His eyes, they were the coldest, emptiest eyes I'd ever seen. He identified himself only as State. His voice was flat, devoid of the professional cadence of a trooper. He ordered me out of the cab and demanded I open the trailer. This wasn't a routine inspection. His movements were too deliberate, his gaze too focused. He wasn't checking my straps or my bills of lading. He was hunting. Then he turned toward the dense pine tree line and let out a sharp, piercing whistle. What happened next is seared into my memory. From the shadowy trees, figures emerged. Not one or two, but 12, 15 men, all in identical black tactical gear. They moved at a silent, coordinated run, surrounding my rig in seconds. My blood turned to ice. Every instinct screamed. I began to shuffle backward, toward the door of my cab, a flimsy metal shell that suddenly felt like paper. His pistol was out of its holster in a blur. "On your knees," he commanded, his voice still eerily calm. I froze. It was a mistake. In 2 strides, he closed the distance. I felt the cold, circular pressure of the gun barrel pressed hard against my forehead. No real cop does that. That single thought cut through the terror. This was something else. "Are you a real American?" He hissed, the metal still pressed to my skin. "Are you a Jew?" My mind raced, a frantic scramble for the right answer, the safe answer. My father was Turkish. He was Muslim. In that moment, drowning in those empty eyes, I knew that was a death sentence. "My dad's Greek," I heard myself say, my voice strangely steady. "Christian." A beat of silence felt like an hour. He searched my face, then gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. The barrel left my forehead. As he holstered his weapon, his men sprang into action. They weren't ransacking the trailer. They were executing a plan. They bypassed the generic boxes, heading straight for specific pallets I knew contained ammunition, military-style MREs, and body armor. While they worked, their leader stood beside me, not as a captor now, but like a preacher delivering a sermon. "I should be happy," he said. "This was for a worthy cause. I should be a good citizen. Report the robbery when they were gone. Save my job with the insurance claim." Just before turning to leave, he faced me one last time. His hand rested on his holstered pistol. "Do I need to shoot you?" he asked, almost casually, "to make sure you don't try to be a hero?" My mouth was dry. "I'm unarmed," I managed. He actually smiled then. A thin, lifeless crack in his stoic facade. "You should get something to protect yourself," he said. Then he was gone. The men, the black pickup, the box truck they'd loaded, all vanished into the mist as silently as they'd arrived. The real police, when I finally found a signal to call them, listened with grim faces. They mentioned a name, a silent brotherhood, a radical militia. They were known for armed robberies, for murders. The detective told me a radio DJ they'd targeted a year prior hadn't been as lucky as I was. In the days after, a strange feeling settled over me. It wasn't just relief. It was a dark, adrenaline-tinged rush from having survived. But that feeling was swallowed by a deeper, colder truth. That day, I didn't just lose a cargo. I lost something fundamental. I lost the quiet, comfortable illusion that the uniform or anything that looks like authority always represents order. Sometimes, the uniform is just another kind of gang. Story 3. The Angel in the Blizzard. What would you do if, in the middle of a blinding blizzard, with a cliff on one side and certain death in your path, the thing you almost hit wasn't an animal at all? Let me tell you about the mountain passes at night. During the day, they're postcards, but after dark, they transform. They become a different kind of beast entirely. Your world shrinks to the cone of your headlights. You've got whiteout snow that turns everything into a static TV screen, black ice that laughs at your tire chains, and just a few feet to your right, a 500-foot drop into nothing. The guardrail? Let's be honest. At 80,000 pounds, that's just a polite suggestion. And your high beams? In a storm like that, they don't help. They just light up a wall of swirling white and blind you. You are utterly, completely alone with the storm. It's a special kind of loneliness. The kind that makes you talk to yourself just to remember what a human voice sounds like. But sometimes, you're not as alone as you think. It was on a run near Vail, Colorado. The kind of blizzard that makes the Weather Channel reporters giddy. I was crawling, barely 25 miles an hour, my knuckles white on the wheel. And then, a flash, a pink blur. It didn't lumber out like a deer. It darted from a snowbank right into the path of my grill. It was a little girl. Time didn't slow down. It stretched like taffy. I stood on the brakes, feeling 18 wheels try to decide which way they wanted to go. The trailer began its sickening swing toward the cab to jackknife. I was no longer driving. I was piloting a skidding building across an icy lane, directly toward that polite little guardrail. A truck shuddered to a stop, angled across both lanes. The silence after the screech was deafening. I looked down. I had missed her, by the width of a paperback novel. You know, the kind you buy at an airport and leave on the plane. She just stood there, frozen, a perfect, petrified statue in the swirling, blinding light. Her lips were a terrifying, waxy blue. I was out of the cab before I even made a decision. The cold hit me like a physical slap. I scooped her up. She was so light, and carried her back to the only source of warmth for miles. I cranked the heat to inferno, wrapped her in my big, greasy coat until she looked like a shivering burrito with eyes, and I waited. Slowly, the violent shivers started. That's a good sign. It's when the shivering stops that you're in real trouble. Then, as the life flushed back into her pale cheeks, her eyes focused on mine, and she whispered something that turned my blood to ice. "He's going to get me." "Who, sweetheart?" I asked, My voice too loud in the quiet cab. "Who's going to get you?" And she told me. In broken, gasping whispers, she described her captor. Not from a house, but from a dark place in the woods. A man who told her he could run faster than a truck. A man who promised her he could fly. Think about that. The genius of that horror. A monster doesn't just lock a door. He fills a child's head with nightmares so vivid, so impossible, that the world itself becomes her prison. Why run if he can fly? Why hide if he's faster than a semi? So, there I was. My delivery schedule was shot, my logbook was a mess, and my new co-pilot was a traumatized kid wrapped in a parka. Priorities, right? I drove the rest of the way to Vale with this tiny, silent bundle in my passenger seat. I didn't deliver to a warehouse. I delivered to the sheriff's station. I handed her over to a deputy with kind eyes, explained what I could, and watched that heavy door swing shut behind them. And then, nothing. No news stories ever followed. No missing child alerts that matched her description. No reporter called for an interview. I checked the local papers for weeks. I called the station once. They were politely uninformative. I never learned her name. I never found out if they caught the scary man who could fly. It's the not knowing that stays with you. I think of her now, not as that frozen little ghost in the snow, but as a woman. She'd be in her 20s by now. Maybe she has kids of her own. I hope she does. I hope the memory that stuck isn't the cold of those woods, or the voice of a monster who claimed he could fly. I hope what stayed with her was the blast of hot air from my heater, the feeling of that big, ugly coat wrapped around her, the roar of an engine carrying her to safety. Some rescues are clean. You pull someone from a car, you perform CPR, you get a thank you card. The story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But others, you're just a chapter. You show up in the storm, literally, for one terrifying, perfect moment. You give someone a head start, and then you drive away, forever wondering how the story ends. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind howls just right, I wonder if he's still out there, in the dark places, waiting. And I wonder if my head start was enough. If you believe in being someone's moment in the storm, share this story. And to make sure you never miss a tale from the lonely, haunted roads. You never know what or who you might meet out there. Story 4. The Predator in the Break Room. We like to think monsters hide in shadows, under beds, in deep woods. But what if I told you the most dangerous predator I ever met didn't lurk in the dark? He clocked in for the morning shift right next to me. This isn't a story from a haunted highway. It's from a place you know, a fluorescent lit break room, the smell of stale coffee, and the low hum of a warehouse. My world was roots, manifests, and on-time deliveries. Predictable, safe, or so I thought. We got a new hire, Jerry, quiet guy, kept to himself. We've all worked with a Jerry, right? You don't think much of it. Maybe he's shy. But then came the first red flag. And it was so subtle, so bizarre, you could almost talk yourself out of seeing it. A guy named Dave, a proud new uncle, was passing around his phone. Look at my niece, first birthday. Smiling kids, cake, the whole deal. When the phone got to Jerry, he didn't just glance and pass it on. He physically recoiled, like the phone was coated in something toxic. He pushed it away with this ice-cold, polite disgust and said, "No, thank you." The room got awkward for a second. We all just shrugged it off. Weird guy, we thought. Maybe he doesn't like kids. But your gut, it files that moment away. It doesn't forget. Weeks later, on a residential route, I saw a company truck parked in a weird spot. Not at a delivery address, just parked. It was Jerry's truck, and it was across the street from an elementary school playground. Coincidence? Maybe. Delivery drivers park everywhere, but then I saw it a second time. Same school, different day. And this time, from my own truck across the street, I had a clearer view. Jerry wasn't on his phone making a call. He had it raised, pointed directly at the playground, at the children. He was filming. That's when the weird feeling in my gut exploded into a 5-alarm fire. This wasn't shyness. This was a pattern. I didn't think. I drove my truck right up next to his, blocking him in. I got out and marched to his window. He looked up, and the sheer panic on his face was all the confirmation I needed. I said, "What are you doing, Jerry?" He didn't say a word, just threw his truck in reverse, slammed into a garbage can, and sped off like a bat out of hell. Now, I'd been with this company for 12 years. Spotless record. I trusted the system. I went straight to management, then to HR. I laid it all out. The no thank you, the parked truck, the filming, the panicked escape. I gave my statement, trusting my years of loyalty would give my word the weight it deserved. Big mistake. The HR meeting felt like I'd stepped into a parallel universe. They'd already spoken to Jerry? Know what his explanation was? An interest in photography. Can you believe that? Architectural photography. Of schools. During recess. They didn't investigate him. They turned the tables on me. The HR rep, this guy with a smug, practiced calm, told me I was creating a hostile work environment based on a personal misunderstanding. That my unsubstantiated accusations could be considered harassment. He threatened my job, my loyalty, my gut instinct, my desire to protect children. It meant absolutely nothing against corporate protocol and the fear of a lawsuit. I looked at their placid, dismissive faces and felt a fury so cold it burned. I quit on the spot. No 2-week notice. Just disgust. For 8 months, I tried to forget it. I got a new job, but that cold fury, it stayed. Then, my phone rang. It was my old supervisor. His voice was heavy, ashamed. "You were right," he said. 8 months to the day after I quit, the FBI had shown up at our old warehouse. They arrested Jerry at his truck. He'd been caught in an online predator sting, trying to solicit explicit photos from a 13-year-old girl, who was actually an undercover agent. The HR rep who threatened me. He resigned the same day and basically vanished. My supervisor apologized. It was hollow. The damage was done. The lesson here wasn't just about a predator. It was about the world we've built. The system is not designed to see evil. It's not wired for gut feelings or uncomfortable truths. It is designed from the ground up, for one thing, to avoid lawsuits, to smooth things over, to protect the company, even if that means providing cover for a monster in a company shirt. So trust your gut. Even when the whole employee handbook, the HR department, and polite society are telling you to sit down and be quiet, the road teaches brutal truths. The real cargo isn't in your trailer. It's the people you meet and the chilling echoes they leave behind. You start checking your mirrors for more than just traffic. You're listening for the ghosts in the break room. And speaking of chilling truths, if this story got under your skin, you need to hear what happens when the countdown to midnight goes horribly wrong. You will also like my video is 3 very scary true new Year's Eve horror stories. One click on the end screen or in the description below, and the terror continues. Subscribe so you don't miss a single story.